And so now that you've just seen how you can enable your teams to self-service remotely and increase productivity, let's talk about driving down costs and maximizing the technology that you're already using. So when it comes to the apps that your business is using, two huge problems often come up, which are overspending and underutilization. Even if you've bought apps and you're using them to their fullest potential, this swivel chairing between the apps can cost your employees a lot of time, and it creates a poor experience, which also could cause them to not use the apps and underutilize them. It's an issue that I know is very common, and another issue that I know is very common is the over-purchasing and provisioning of app licenses. I already mentioned that in my time as a consultant doing Salesforce implementations, I saw this a lot. But what exacerbates this problem is when there's no active usage monitoring. So companies don't know how many licenses are actually being used and actually are needed. And this goes beyond licenses. This could be infrastructure or any technology that you're using. You want to maximize their usage. So the question then becomes, how do you drive process efficiencies to lower the cost of lost productivity, increase the utilization of your apps to increase the value of your tech investments, and minimize wasteful spending on things like unused licenses? So let's start with process efficiencies. Inefficiencies lead to a lot of operating expenditures. And in this example, this large cloud computing company had a process for requesting and sending NDAs, something a lot of companies have to do. But prior to automation, these requests required a lot of manual steps by the legal team. In fact, a majority of the legal team time was spent fulfilling these NDA requests. So it's a lot of productivity lost. And this is even with investments that they'd made in ticketing and e-signature, which are ServiceNow and DocuSign respectively. So through automation, they were able to make Slack their portal for requests, which saved requesters time as they could self-service. This kicked off a process to automatically create the ticket in ServiceNow, which then also looked up the employee information in Workday to automatically create and generate the NDA in DocuSign and then send it to the recipient. So this, for 80% of NDAs, this entire process became touchless. So this saved the legal team a ton of time. It maximized the value of these apps that they already were using. And NDAs were also sent out 3 times faster. And to me, actually, the most interesting benefit for this was that NPS for IT increased to over 90, which is huge. So this was just also creating a better experience for the employees. Now, in this next example, I want to talk about maximizing tech value. And they did this by monitoring usage and reclaiming unused equipment. Now, when you monitor usage and reclaim unused equipment, this can save time and money. This large enterprise company had a process where developers were constantly requesting new virtual machines for things like running tests. But the main problem was that IT just kept adding virtual machines to meet this request rather than re-provisioning any unused machines because they weren't really had a great way of monitoring that. And through automation, they were able to reduce costs in 2 fronts: reviewer time and unused resources. In this main workflow, which starts off in Slack, where the employee requests a virtual machine, you can see that they automated the review process. So they set up rules that verified that the virtual machine request was standard. And they also did a lookup in Nutanix to verify that the history of the requester was good. So in this way, they were able to automate a lot of the humdrum virtual machine requests, and just automate those provisioning. And reviewers could spend a lot more time on customer unusual requests, which saved them upwards of 6 hours a week. But the main value here came from step 5. And this is where they had a monthly check of their machines, and they checked the capacity and reclaimed unused machines to add back into their pool. This actually reduced their cost by 60%. Simply by maximizing the technology and machines that they already had. And then in this last example, Raina is going to walk you through how we at Workato actually monitor our own usage and minimize waste. Like many companies, our Zoom usage skyrocketed once everyone started working from home. And as everyone, including myself, thought that they needed a full version of Zoom instead of the free one, which kicks you out after 40 minutes. But what we saw was that through systematic and diligent monitoring, there were a lot of people who weren't hosting meetings that were more than 40 minutes with more than 2 participants, which is what you get with the basic license. So in these cases, we were able to identify and automatically downgrade these accounts to the basic free account, saving us a lot of time, a lot of money. Though we also included a process to give employees a way to request or reject that downgrade if they had a valid reason. So let's see how this works in action.
Awesome, thanks, Scott. So let's move back over to Slack. I can kind of kick off this flow. All right, so you know, as kind of an app admin, this is kind of the notification that I would see. So I have kind of this monthly notification for Zoom usage, and as Scott mentioned, you know, we've kind of set this criteria here. So users that are flagged or scheduled for a downgrade are users who haven't had at least one Zoom meeting in the past 30 days that's longer than 40 minutes with more than 2 participants. So I can actually click on this thread to see which specific users have been flagged. So let me do that right here. All right. So, you know, as I'm looking through this list of users, I can see that, you know, maybe John, he was on PTO for about the past month, for the past, you know, 3 to 4 weeks, and he actually still does need his enterprise license, so he shouldn't be downgraded. So I can actually click on this button here just to remove him from this list. So you can see I've confirmed that John has been removed. So for everyone else who's on this list, including myself, you know, I don't want to just instantly downgrade their accounts. I want to notify them and give them a heads up that's to say, hey, your account is being scheduled for a downgrade, so that they can take action if they still need to retain their enterprise license. So I can click on notify users, which, all right. So, you know, this is what kind of being on the receiving end, there's 2. So this is the one that we'd be looking at. If my account was flagged for a downgrade, I have kind of one of 2 options. So I can click, I want to retain my license if I still need full enterprise level access, and this will send a approval request to my manager, who looks like she approved it, so I still have my license. Alternatively, if we hit notify users again and I decide to just acknowledge, hey, I'm okay with the downgrade, I can just say acknowledge, and this will send a call to Zoom to automatically downgrade my account to basic. Since we're automatically downgrading employees, we also want to make it easy for employees to request access again if they, you know, accidentally click on the wrong option or decide later that day that they still do need an enterprise license. So I can actually hit request license upgrade here, and this will send my manager an approval again. And when she approves, I will be upgraded back to an enterprise license. So you know, this is just one example looking at Zoom usage, but AssistantBot kind of helps us control app usage and app access and monitor usage to deprovision inactive users. And this helps us with overspending on higher level licenses if not needed, and reallocate licenses that are being paid for to users who you know, might actually need them.